WBCB presents Pro Wrestling Weekly.
Enough is enough, and it's time for a change!
Can't believe I'm putting my voice to this.
Call in with a question or comment at 215-949-3232 or 888-922-2149.
Thank you for your irrelevant opinion.
And now, here's your host of Pro Wrestling Weekly, Fearon.
The first thing you need to do is to tell these people to shut up if you want to hear what I gotta say. I'm a broadcast journalist. I have a right to my opinion.
Oh, son of a...
I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even in commentary.
There's the sound of the bell, and we are set to go. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon here with you, and boy, are we going to hear a lot from that last gentleman talking about the best on the microphone, in the ring, and whatnot. For those of you who haven't heard, if you were busy enjoying your Thanksgiving, hopefully you all did out there, and whatever shopping you may have done Friday or, well, hopefully not Thursday, but if you did that too, I might admonish you a little bit later. We'll see. But CM Punk speaking out on his departure from WWE. That's right. In case you didn't hear, CM Punk spoke for almost 2 hours about his departure from WWE in Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast that was released this past Thursday morning, Thanksgiving morning. At one point, Cabana's website went down from a server overload due to too many people trying to access the podcast at the same time. There are a litany of highlights noting a lot of his ideas that were stolen. I've got some audio clips to go along with that. That he was initially offered the lead role in the movie 12 Rounds 2. He talks about his injury issues leading up to the 2014 Royal Rumble. He rips WWE's concussion testing program. He rips WWE's doctors and their whole medical assessment. Gosh, where else to start? He makes a claim that Ryback tried to deliberately injure him. He talks about, at one point, being given antibiotics that caused him to poop himself during a match on SmackDown, and the subsequent Twitter reaction following. Questioning his WrestleMania 29 pay for working with The Undertaker, wrestling with a staph infection, getting a text from Vince McMahon following his walkout stating that he was suspended the day after WrestleMania. I mean, there's so much to this, and over the course of the hour, I've got various audio clips heavily censored from the podcast. I guess we'll get right into it. I mean, first of all, Punk talking about how he feels currently.
Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the happiest I've been in I don't know how, at least 3 years.
Great.
Legitimately, you know what I mean? I find these other things that have made me happy, and I thought this thing that I loved, it just made me so miserable. All the time, it made me miserable. And I guess the black and the white of it, when you just boil it all down, the essence of it was, I was miserable, I was unhappy, it. I made myself happy. I left. Like, that's what it boils down to.
And it has also boiled down to a lot of back and forth debating all over the internet, but as well as on the WBCB Pro Wrestling Weekly Facebook fan page. And it's been very back and forth. People who support CM Punk and have learned a lot about the different allegations that went on in this podcast feel, wow, he really got a raw deal. You know, wow, Vince and Triple H really stuck it to him. And then those who aren't necessarily fans of Punk say, you know what? He's a wimp. He's a wuss. He's a quitter. He's a crybaby. I've heard both sides of the argument. I've played devil's advocate on both sides of the argument. And, well, let me get into some, I'll get into the Facebook feedback after going through all the clips, because there's, again, so much to talk about. I don't even know where to go from here, pretty much. I mean, he talks about, as I said, some of his ideas being stolen, and Punk actually tells a story about pitching the idea of accompanying UFC fighter Chael Sonnen to add some notoriety for an upcoming pay-per-view.
my friend Chael's fighting in Chicago for UFC, and I already talked to all of them, and they're totally cool with the idea. I'm going to walk him to the Octagon, and tomorrow's the Royal Rumble, so it'll get some last-minute buys, and whether Chael wins or loses, no offense to Chael, nobody's going to be talking about him. They're going to be talking about the WWE champion walking him to the Octagon. Oh, my God, Phil, no, we can't do that. That's barbaric. Somebody's going to die. And then I had to remind him, well, you know, I don't know if you remember Owen Hart or not, you know, because he sort of died in your ring.
Someone's going to die?
That's what he said.
What does that mean?
He said somebody was going to die in the Octagon. He's just not in touch.
Right.
So he tells me I can't do that, and I felt, damn, you know, like that. It's such an opportunity for the company. It's just a spotlight. It's more promotion. It's more eyes on the product. It's my hometown. Place would be going crazy for me. And he says no, and then the next day or the next week, Triple H walks Mayweather to the ring. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm learning my lesson. It's easier to ask forgiveness and permission. Next time, I'm not going to ask.
Wow. So pretty much, I mean, ideas being taken, that seems to happen a lot. I think at one point, Punk took credit for coming up with the idea of the Shield. And initially, I know there's so much to delve into this and so many different opinions, and can certainly get those. Those that are tuning in on this late afternoon, thanks for sticking with us here, as we had to do a little bit of a schedule shifting for the Pennsbury-Coatesville PIAA District 1 Class Quad A championship game, which Pennsbury won 21-14 over Coatesville, and that is in part why Lucas the intern is not with us, as he is celebrating Pennsbury's victory, being a member of said high school. But I'm sure he'll have a litany of opinions, and he has no problem expressing them, as I've seen that he has on the Pro Wrestling Weekly Facebook fan page. But of course, Punk talking about why he left and how his departure affected the WWE in the short term after leaving the night after the 2014 Royal Rumble.
I think a lot of people believe like all these powerful words I say about change and changing the place and all that, and people constantly tweet to me all the time, oh, you know, you can't change it from your couch in Chicago. Right. And I absolutely disagree, because that's exactly what I did. When I split in January, they changed everything. And part of me thinks they changed a lot of stuff to spite me. And that's fine, because certain people who deserved certain things at that certain time got those things. And that's something that I never got. And it was nice to see that.
And, of course, by certain people, in this case, he's referring to Daniel Bryan, who kind of got force-fed between Punk leaving and by the vitriol of the masses following Batista's winning of the Royal Rumble earlier this year. Daniel Bryan getting shoehorned into the main event, ultimately winning it. And, well, unfortunately, injuries haven't exactly helped him since then, to say the least. And CM Punk, he talks a lot about being injured throughout the course of the podcast and how that affected him. Numerous injuries, including at one point a tilted pelvis, both knees being blown out, concussions, which he talks a lot about the concussions, including the Royal Rumble and the subsequent concussion test.
I got a concussion in the Royal Rumble. It's pretty obvious. I knew I had a concussion. Everybody knew I had a concussion, and they're like, we want you to take this test. And I was like, your test is bullshit. I took the test while texting you and listening to my headphones, and I quote-unquote passed with flying colors. But then they were like, oh, we want you to go to the ring and run the ropes. And I was like, but I just passed your test. They're like, yeah, but we still think you have a concussion. I was like, so your test is worthless. I'm not going out in the ring like a 2-week rookie to run the ropes in front of everybody. Let's just call it now. You know,
call it a concussion.
I was doing this weird stubborn thing where I was like, I'm fine, I can work, because that's the way I always been, and that's what they instill in you. Because if I didn't work, I'd get punished.
If I didn't work, I'd get punished. I guess there's something to be said for that, and that has been shown over the years. If you aren't able to make it, opportunities can be lost. Probably a notable one was when, well, at least looking way back when the natural Butch Reed was supposed to win the Intercontinental Championship, and he no-showed the event, and it ended up being given to the Honky Tonk Man, who at that point was just kind of a joke, and he ended up turning that into the longest reign of an Intercontinental Champion in WWE history. So I guess being around at the right opportunities and sticking things out can tend to pay off, and that's what a lot of what arguments are coming in from the side of those who feel that Punk basically quit. And he gives his side of the story to that. We'll get into that in a little bit. Speaking of WWE and their side of the story, Punk talks a little bit, explaining about how procedures are in place to put corporate image over employee safety.
The WWE doesn't do anything to protect the wrestlers. They do things to protect themselves. They don't let everybody know that they're doing all these fantastic things for concussions for the boys. They do it so it looks good on them in the public. The NFL is getting f***ed because there is a union for the football players, and the union is saying, you need to pay these guys this much money for medical, for past injuries, for whatever, and the NFL is doing it. The NFL is paying out the ass, and Vince doesn't want to do that.
Well, he makes a good point there. The NFL certainly has had its issues with concussions, and he goes on to talk about, well, look at our concussion testing program, although Punk already explained what he felt it was, using terms that I can't use on the air and obviously had to bleep, but saying at one point that it was worthless. And I mean, these are just little 30, 45-second snippets of an almost 2-hour podcast that, as I said, has gotten a lot of back and forth, to say the least. And I know that coming up on the line in a little bit, we're going to have somebody who doesn't quite see eye to eye with CM Punk on this, and I've been having a lot of fun playing devil's advocate with him, even from all the way across the ocean. Yes, we've got Harry Barnett. We'll get to him on the other side. We've got some more to talk about regarding the CM Punk podcast, the Survivor Series fallout, Sting making his WWE debut. Talk about getting overshadowed. I mean, there's that to talk about. In kind of more of a wrestle crap moment, we're going to see this coming Monday the return of the anonymous, wink wink, Raw general manager. I'll give out about that in a little bit. We've still got today in wrestling history. We've got birthdays, a litany of other news, so much to talk about in this special late afternoon post-Pennsbury football edition of Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 AM WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. In an unintentionally funny moment, we were trying to remember that Team DX 2006 Survivor Series team, and we knew it was the Hardys, we knew it was Shawn Michaels and Triple H, and I wasn't intentionally doing this, but of course the fifth member was that CM Punk guy.
And now, more Pro Wrestling Weekly with your host, Fearon Derry.
So, no, I wasn't doing it just to be a Richard and saying, oh, yeah, who was that guy? I don't remember who he... No, I legitimately couldn't remember, but it was a funny moment nonetheless. And to say the least, we know his name now, or at least we can certainly remember it, as that's been all that's been talked about over the course of roughly the last, 55 hours or so. Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry here with you, flying solo. Lucas the intern should be back next week. He will have come down off of his high of the Pennsbury football win that you heard earlier here on 1490 WBCB, the PIAA District 1 champions. Why do I have a hunch he's going to be rolling in here with a belt next week? That's probably just how he rolls. Speaking of rolling, we're going to roll across the pond. We're going to head over to jolly old England, where I have a feeling that there may not be some jolliness headed in my direction, courtesy of the great Harry Barnett. Harry, welcome to Pro Wrestling Weekly.
Well, that's the third time I've heard my name mentioned in the space of less than 10 minutes, and you finally get it correct the third time.
Oh, you know how it works. The third time's the charm, right? That's the old adage.
If I can get the American Roughneck to say it properly, I can get Brady Hicks to say it properly, and thank God you can say it at least once out of three.
Well, to be fair, it's I've got added responsibilities here, kind of doing it all. I'm running the board, I'm pushing the buttons, I'm turning the dials, I'm taking care of the phones. I'm obviously talking to all of you out there. So there's a lot of hats that I'm wearing here. So one of them might be on a little too tight.
Well, I mean, with all that hair as well.
This is accurate, yes.
Down in your head.
It is true. I might be due for a trim sometime soon. It's what keeps me warm in the winter nowadays.
But so Sharon's caring for Ron, so, with the amount of hair that I've actually still got, you might need to send some my way.
There we go. Well, considering the texture of it, I'll just dye it green. You can put it on. It'll look just like Doink the Clown's wig.
Yeah, Joker's more suited.
Yeah, Joker is more suitable for you. This is true.
Yeah.
If it works for Sting, it'll work for anybody.
That's funny.
All right, so you had quite a few takes, to say the least, and I actually have them right up here on the Pro Wrestling Weekly Facebook fan page. Some of the things I've already gotten into, some of them not so much, but do you just want to go take for take? Do you want to give your own opinion on this? Yeah, do you want to amend anything you had written earlier? Huh?
You're the host, go as you will.
Well, I mean, you're the caller, you're the guest. I'm just, all right. One of the things that Punk talked about was a growth that was on his body that lingered around for months, and the doctors felt that the best way to treat it was, rather than just cut it out as they've done to other growths and things, they decided to kind of leave it linger and just continually give him Z-Packs, zithromycin, the little 5-day. I don't know if they have those over in England or not, or if that's just a U.S. thing. I don't know if you got.
Oh no, we don't. Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge. Okay, but it's an antibiotic that usually you take over the course of 5 days, and it takes care of most bacterial infections. But apparently not this particular one, as over the course of the 3 months after he had left, he went to see his soon-to-be wife, AJ Lee's doctor, and noted that the growing mass happened to be a staph infection that had grown to full-out MRSA. And as long as he had worked on it, the doctor told him that had he not gotten it treated sooner, that he could have died. I don't know necessarily. I don't know how much of that is hyperbole. I mean, who knows? There are stranger things that have happened in wrestling.
Well, two things. You did just bring AJ up. One thing, just quickly off topic, I want to say the fact that him coming out and saying all of this, whether it's true, not true, exaggerated, whatever, he has probably just killed her career. She will probably, whether they suspend her, kick her off TV, just have her be Zack Ryder, that's probably the death of her career. But as far as the staph infection goes, I don't know if you or anyone else out there listening has actually gone to Twitter and read all that Road Dogg said, but...
Oh, yes, I did read that.
Apparently the doctor in WWE, doctors are the choice of the talent, so he didn't have to go with that particular doctor.
This is true, and WWE also had issued a press release to Yahoo Sports regarding Punk's calling out the WWE medical team and the drug testing policies and concussion testing, and they simply said, WWE takes the health and wellness of its talent very seriously and has a comprehensive talent wellness program that is led by one of the most well-respected physicians in the country, Dr. Joseph Maroon. Well, where was Joseph Maroon when all this was going on? Why did he keep going back to Dr. Amen? That's one of the questions that I have, and maybe one of the questions that fans will be bringing into Punk, as I didn't mention this. There's going to be a follow-up podcast with Colt Cabana, I believe this coming Thursday, where they're going to answer fan questions in reaction to everything that was talked about in that almost 2-hour podcast.
And that is the follow-up. I mean, I'm not going to lie, as much as I don't like him, CM Punk, it was an interesting thing to hear, obviously, however you feel about him. It was an interesting thing to hear, whether true, false, exaggerated, whatever. It was an interesting listen, it's something to pass the time for 2 hours, and you think, will I be? But,
One thing I will say is that he does say the F word a lot. It took a lot of editing to be able to make this stuff suitable for air, without question.
Well, if you're on a network that had no restrictions, that was for entertainment purposes, if you will, hint, hint, Great Entertainment.
I see what you're doing there. Okay.
Those things would be allowed out, but obviously you're on professional radio that does not allow certain words. So, that's all well and good. But I've kind of lost my point as I was dropping in that plug.
Oh, goodness. Well, you certainly have quite a few points here. I will agree with you that Punk made a big deal about not being in the main event at WrestleMania. And that was a sticking point. And people said, well, you had the match of the night, of course, referring to his match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 29, which I was in person there for, and I would agree that it was the match of the night. And Punk felt that he should be compensated like the main eventers, whether it was The Undertaker, Triple H, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, The Rock, and felt that he was being shortcut, I guess.
Well, Fearon, let me ask you a question here, because I know you are a hard-working man, and this stems a question. Do you, I can honestly answer this question with a no as well, do you feel like you get paid enough in your job?
That's a loaded question because I'm here on the job, but I will say that, there are a lot of people, and I think I made this point, which if I remember right, you might have sandbagged in the comments section because you went right to Mark Angel saying, oh, he's a crybaby and a whiner and a bitch, and you were just like, oh, yeah, right on, just ignored my whole series of poignant points. But that's all right. It was probably one of those too long, didn't read type deals. But you mentioned hundreds of people more, or hundreds of better or more deserving people didn't get that main event spot. And I did some research. There were 32 wrestlers in the over the 30 WrestleManias who have gotten that. I say main event is in that final match, not necessarily something that's billed as a double main event or something like that. No, closing out the show of WrestleMania, 32 people have done it, and you're right. There are a lot of omissions, and then there are a lot of names that appear a lot of times. Obviously, Hogan is the one that appears the most. I think he had 8 closing manias, and yes, I include that awful Drek from WrestleMania 9. Want to venture a guess as to who was second?
Triple H.
Very good. Yes, he has had, I believe, 6 closing main event, and then you've got a few people tied with 5, including John Cena, and I forget the list off the top of my head. I left it at home in the midst of gathering things for this this afternoon show. But yeah, so I don't know about hundreds of better or more deserving people, but there are certainly quite a few who haven't. Flair hasn't. Dusty Rhodes hasn't. Quite a few Hall of Famers haven't. I think Warrior did
exactly.
once.
That's what I mean. You can look through not only the Hall of Fame, you can look through, rosters from here to the beginning of WrestleMania. And
oh, yeah, well, there's also a lot of repeats. You see The Rock a lot, you see Austin a lot, you see Shawn Michaels, Triple H a lot, John Cena. They accompany or make their way in quite a few main events, and I know I jokingly put up that 47 times in a lifetime picture. Figured you'd at least get a little bit of a chuckle out of that. The WrestleMania 75 picture.
Oh, I see a lot of things,
Yeah, true. Yeah, you sandbag a lot of them. Very true. But
whoa. Now, come on. You say I sandbag things. Usually it's because I have an attention issue of that, or, you mentioned Mark Angel. Usually if he says something, usually you just overlook it. But if he makes a good point, then you think, no, I'm just kidding. Mark, you're a good guy.
No, Mark is a good guy. No, I can't rip on Mark. I have to get him in here one of these days. I don't know how I've been doing this show as long as I have, and I've known Mark as long as I have, and I haven't gotten him in here.
Well, you said he was one of the few people that you recognized when you came to New Moon Rising Wrestling, nearly over a year ago now, and a roster of people that were practically strangers. You said you recognized Mark.
Yes, this is true. I've seen Mark quite a bit here on the local South Philadelphia or southeastern Pennsylvania independent scene, as well as over in Jersey. But I kind of digress with that, but I love your quote here. Complaining about Ryback being dangerous, geez, it's pro wrestling, not ballet. There's two sides to that. I mean, obviously, when you're in any type of professional sport, injuries do happen. So I don't know how much of it is sour grapes of being injured when you were already injured, how much of it is, you're just trying to pin an accident on. I don't know if Ryback's necessarily a rookie at the point that he talks about a gorilla press slam onto a table where I'd say Punk caught 10% of the wooden table and the other 90% was the concrete, and that's where he tilted his pelvis.
So sorry, just as soon as you said Punk, I just sort of, I was trying to basically say that I drifted off, but words aren't coming to me tonight. The injuries, whether they were legit, whether they were him exaggerating on his injuries he already had, we'll never know because, there's only ever the two sides to the story. There's his word against the others.
And then there's the truth, which is somewhere in between.
Yeah, and while I'm on two sides of the story as well, this kind of relates to what Road Dogg said as well. You may never hear the other side of the story. You may only, and the chances are you probably only will ever hear CM Punk's side of the story. WWE aren't going to fight back. You'll just have the occasional person like a Road Dogg or a Ryback who will run their mouth because they're getting wound up at the amount of CM Punk fans who are basically...
Who are just annihilating him on Twitter. This is true. This will be one of those untold stories in wrestling, kind of like why is Randy Savage not in the Hall of Fame yet, and does it have something to do with Stephanie McMahon?
Well, there's that, and the amount of times that I've seen on social media again where people are saying, oh, I wonder if Vince will answer this whole issue on the podcast he's done with Stone Cold on the network.
No. If anything, he will give a very politically correct answer, but I don't see Austin even broaching that subject, or if he does, there will be premeditated, word-for-word question and answer already gone over, almost like a collaborative press release.
Well, yeah. If you look, they're advertising it as the Stone Cold podcast, not the Steve Austin show. That's how you can sort of see, they're two different things. That's not
exactly. This is under the WWE umbrella, so, Austin, obviously, knowing where his bread was buttered over the years, is not about to ruffle any feathers. How many awful cliches can I throw into that sentence? It could be worse. We could be hearing from the anonymous Raw general manager, the allegedly anonymous. As soon as I heard that tone, I thought, are they really going back to... Did they even remember that they revealed that?
I was going to say that they probably forgot that they revealed it, but there's the potential where they could actually say, oh no, he wasn't Hornswoggle. Hornswoggle was just messing around with the laptop. He took it and he went under the ring. And
wow, that... I don't know. I see why they're going that route. They're like, this Monday's Cyber Monday. How can we tie that in? Well, we're not going to do like a voting style pay-per-view. Oh yeah, we had that Raw general manager computer thing for a while. Maybe we can tie that in. It just it reeks of trying to shoehorn something in, kind of in the same way that they shoehorn storylines into Hell in a Cell for every October, and until this year, Elimination Chamber every February. It feels force fed.
But seeing as you brought up Elimination Chamber, the rumor sort of came up a little while ago. I don't know if it was rumor or fact that they're scrapping Elimination Chamber. I have an idea of what I want to replace that, but I have a feeling that they wouldn't do it so close to Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And, you being an old school fan just like myself, you're probably thinking the same as me, but I really want them to bring back King of the Ring.
I like the concept of King of the Ring, and I'm right there with you on that. As soon as you said that, I thought, all right, maybe he's going King of the Ring. The problem is, historically, tournament-based pay-per-views have not sold as well because apart from the first round matchups, you don't have an idea of who's going to face who. And while you would think that mystery would be intriguing, you kind of want to know what most fans want to know what the big matches are ahead of time. I mean, I don't just mean the King of the Ring pay-per-views from 93 to 2002, but you look back 1998 Survivor Series, the Deadly Game Tournament, WrestleMania 4. Well, WrestleMania 4 was 4 hours. That was part of why that was a bit of a dreadful endurance, a dreadful marathon, if you will, back then. But generally, when you've had the tournament as the surrounding theme for the pay-per-view, the buy rates have simply been lower, and I think that's why WWE hasn't really gone back to that well. Or if they have gone to the King of the Ring well, they've had it on Raw, on SmackDown, and maybe they've had the finals at a pay-per-view.
Well, Fearon, it's interesting that you mentioned tournament-based pay-per-views because, well, I mean, I've just got a rush.
Oh, here we go.
Right now, and there is a certain tournament coming up on Monday, December 1st, for anyone on
For those with PlayStation 4, yes, which I am not one. I'm too busy at home. You know, I'm not going to make the Wii joke again.
I mean, with that terrible game, unless you realize that it's a wrestling game, the in-ring wrestling product is great, so who cares if you can't create a diva? Because on Monday, December 1st, is a 16-man tournament, and we have had, well, I say 16-man, 16-person, we've got a couple of girls in that. But
got to get those female gamers in there.
We may have a couple of dropouts, because we have already. I mean, there's a certain person behind a certain network that retired, I use the quote marks, who was in the tournament, and he dropped out. But it's a 16-man tournament that if people don't get to enter, they get to watch at the GreatEntertainmentNetwork.com.
TheGreatEntertainmentNetwork.com.
Yeah, one would think that I'd never heard those words before, as if I hadn't mentioned them earlier on in the show. But just
I know, just clarifying, just kind of a little bit of reinforcement, not as much as WWE has done with the whole $9.99 nonsense. I don't want to make a joke of it, but you got to mention it a couple of times to reinforce it.
Well, one would think that you hadn't heard that for perhaps the month of November. But no, so there's 16 people, tournament-based, King of the Ring style. 3 prizes up for grabs. That's a support T-shirt for the network, saying that they won the tournament. There's a prize that I've yet to determine.
Okay, a mystery prize. I can picture Monty Burns over the question mark box now.
And I'll say that I genuinely haven't decided what it's going to be yet. That's why it's yet to be determined. And
it's a mystery to everyone. Or it's the secret to everyone. I don't know, something like that.
Exactly. And the third and final one, obviously, is the one that everyone is fighting for, the trophy.
The trophy that most definitely won't be smashed, unlike most trophies in wrestling.
But, whoever wins it, if they want to smash it, they can,
That's their prerogative. This is true. All right, Harry, thanks so much for joining us.
But Monday.
Yeah, yes, this coming Monday, the December 1st. Yeah, I unfortunately, I'm up against a timeout here. But thanks so much for joining in and certainly giving your opinions on on a lot of things in professional wrestling. Appreciate the phone call as always.
Anytime.
All right, the great Harry Barnett chiming in from all the way over in England. All right, we're going to take a timeout. We're going to get to Eric from the Minnesota Wrecking Crew on the other side. I know he's been hanging on for a while. We'll get to you right on the other side of this last timeout. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Pro Wrestling Weekly presents Today in Wrestling History, November 29. On this date in 1999, WCW Monday Nitro aired live from Denver, Colorado. In the main event, Bret Hart and Chris Benoit defeated Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and the team of Goldberg and Sid Vicious in a 3-way tag team steel cage match. On this date in 2004, WWE Monday Night Raw aired live from Baltimore, Maryland. In the main event, the triple threat match between World Heavyweight Champion Triple H, Chris Benoit, and Edge ended in a no decision when Chris Benoit's shoulders were pinned to the mat, applying the crippler crossface to Edge, who tapped out simultaneously. On this date in 2010, WWE Monday Night Raw aired live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In the main event, The Miz defeated Jerry the King Lawler in a TLC match to retain the WWE Championship. This has been Today in Wrestling History, November 29. Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry here with you. A little look back in wrestling history, and we were discussing King of the Ring. The great Harry Barnett and I were, and oddly enough, that same night in 2010 when Raw was here in Philadelphia, Sheamus defeated John Morrison in the tournament final to become the King of the Ring. So, nice little tie into what all's going on here. All right. Before we get back to a little more CM Punk talk, let's go out to the Midwest, to the great state of Minnesota, and Eric from the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Eric, welcome to Pro Wrestling Weekly.
May I have your attention, please?
Oh, do you need the sounder? Oh, mercy.
I was going to say, who knows? I could be the anonymous Raw General Manager, Fran.
Oh, goodness.
And I thought, what better way to follow up greatness than go to the state of perfection?
The state of perfection, yes. Minnesota, home of many, many great wrestlers over the years.
So I know you and Harry were talking about CM Punk, and I had to call in and weigh in with my opinion. Oh,
go right ahead. I know that this has been very, very polarizing, almost as polarizing as Cena. It's almost in the same way of let's go Cena, Cena sucks. There's I don't know, Punk's a quitter, CM Punk. I don't know. I'm coming up with something off the fly here, but
I got two names for you, Fran.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll ask if they have any meaning to you. The two names are Bret Hart and Bruno Sammartino.
Well, both are Hall of Famers. Both left and were gone for quite a while under very bitter circumstances. I can see the comparisons here to CM Punk.
Okay, the reason why I bring them up and had to call in is everybody knows that, well, I guess not everybody since I don't get a chance to call into your show that often, but I'm a huge Jerichoholic.
Yes.
And, you know, when Eric was still on, I used calling a lot because I was actually awake in the day, and I talked to him a lot about Y2J, and Y2J talked a lot about he needed time off from wrestling because he can understand where CM Punk's coming from because he was mentally burnt out. And, like I said with Bret Hart and Bruno Sammartino, they were bitter against Mr. McMahon and all that fun stuff. And after a while, over time, they got back with Vince McMahon. So I feel like it's only in time where things will cool off. CM Punk would, be away from wrestling, do what he needs to do. I feel like one day CM Punk will be back with the company.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm looking forward to that reunion in, let's say, March of 2026, for example, getting ready for WrestleMania 42, and all of a sudden, out's 80-year-old Vince McMahon rolling out in a wheelchair and Cult of Personality hitting. I don't know.
Well, I'm not saying that, CM Punk will have another wrestling match or anything like that, but...
Oh, no, you just mean he'll make good with the company, possibly get put in the Hall of Fame, that sort of deal?
Yeah, that sort of deal. And, I understand where CM Punk's coming from because I'm sure everybody else can, too, that they don't feel as appreciative as they feel like that they should with their job and all that. And every job has, has its goods and its bads. I just think that CM Punk just needed to get away for a while, and I just think he's just like CM Punk said, he's just bitter right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because he's both admitted in the podcast that he is bitter, and on the same token, he said, well, I don't want to make this sound like I'm just ripping WWE and that I'm just coming across as bitter. And a lot of people said, well, he kind of proceeded to do that anyway. Yeah. All the while telling his take on the story after being silent for the last 10 months.
I agree with Harry that, there's two sides of the story, but I feel like there's actually three sides. CM Punk's side, WWE's side, and the truth.
You're right on board with me on that.
And I don't think we'll ever get, if we do get WWE's version, it'll be watered down, I don't know if we'll ever do the truth. If we do, it'll probably be many years down the road, but I don't know. Like I said, I can see in who knows how many years CM Punk will be back.
Yeah, I think as far as hearing WWE's side of the story or the actual truth, I think that's going to be tucked away right, as I said earlier, with the Randy Savage, Stephanie McMahon allegations. That's never going to see the light of day. There will be a very few select people who know, and they will say not word one about it.
And I wanted to get your thoughts on the man called Sting. Now, I don't know if you talked about it on your show already, because I just got...
I mentioned it briefly, and that's the problem. Punk just came in and took he took Sting's thunder, in a sense, because I was all ready to talk about that and talk about Big Show's heel turns, and I was going to go over before I knew Lucas wasn't going to be here, the many, many, many heel turns of Big Show. We'll have to save that for another time, because that's a hysterical list right there. I want to say at least 25 over the course of his career, heel and face turns.
I heard 32.
I have to pin down the actual number, because some of them were where he was a tweener for a little bit, and there was that weird NWO period, and so there are a few kind of question marks as to pin down, all right, what constitutes a term, what doesn't. But that was where I was all set to go with, and then Thanksgiving morning I wake up and the internet exploded.
Yeah, well, what is your thoughts on Sting finally being with the company?
It was an inevitability. I think I'm torn on it. I like the fact that they brought him in at the Survivor Series for the simple surprise, unexpected factor. It would have been so much better, and this is why I said last week I didn't want to get into spoilers, because I read the spoilers that he might be there, but I didn't want to share them with the audience because, like I said, I prefer surprises. And people seem to expose a little too much with that. I mean, there was somebody who, in throwing out the possibility of Randy Orton making an appearance in his hometown at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, somebody took a picture of his boarding pass from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he was filming the movie, to St. Louis. I'm thinking, is there any privacy anymore? I mean, really? I mean, who fished that out of the trash?
Yeah, cause, I know. Well, like you said, I'm a big Jericho fan. I'm a huge Fozzy fan, and Fozzy was in Minneapolis this last Saturday night.
I think I did read about that, yeah.
Yeah, I went to the concert, and when I got home about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I checked Twitter, and Jericho sent out a tweet, I think about 3:18 in the morning here, Central Time, that he was driving down to St. Louis to have lunch with Randy Orton and Sting. So
he's just feeding into the. I mean, there was a story which I guess I can get into it because it's a couple of months away. But apparently WWE is advertising Chris Jericho right around here in New Jersey for the Friday and Saturday shows the same weekend as the Royal Rumble. So here comes all the speculation. Oh, is Jericho coming back to the Rumble? If he is, great. If not, I'm not either way about it.
Yeah, kind of like what you said, Fearon. Let's leave the spoilers alone and let's just be surprised.
Exactly. That's what makes the Rumble fun. I mean, I liked the fact that back in that you get a surprise every once in a while. It wasn't great when they initially announced the Rumble and Vince ran down the card of all 30 guys who were going to be in it in the beginning, killing his vocal cords in the process. Demolition Axe and Demolition Smash and the model Rick Martel, and that's about as much as I can do before I lose my vocal cords.
But yeah, I know. Well, I also want to ask you, who do you think we'll see first back in the company, Sting or Brock Lesnar?
I want to say Lesnar because he'll more than likely make an appearance at the Rumble. There's no need to bring either of them back at TLC. Sting, what is it, to further a match with Triple H 4 months down the road from then. And in Lesnar's case, with his limited appearances, there's no way he's about to cause potential serious injury, especially if he's possibly negotiating with UFC to come back there by participating in some sort of a TLC match.
Yeah, I know you kind of mentioned it. Do you want to see a Triple H versus Sting match for WrestleMania 31?
Personally, I don't hate the idea, but I'm not in love with it either. I understand that you've got to have marquee names to draw, but this is something that I was going back and forth on the Pro Wrestling Weekly Facebook fan page. Or, I don't know, was it that argument or was it on Harry Barnett's personal post on it? I forget, because he put the same post on two different things. But at some point, WWE has to create new stars. Otherwise, you'll have, like, the picture that was posted up a while back heading into WrestleMania 30, the 47 times in a lifetime John Cena versus The Rock at WrestleMania 75.
Okay, well, besides Triple H, who else could have a decent match with Sting at WrestleMania 31?
Well, that's kind of the problem. I mean, who has the familiarity with his, I guess, with his style? There are a lot of questions, and that's way too far down the road to even begin to look at. I mean, we're a couple of weeks away from TLC. It's probably better that I put Survivor Series in the rearview mirror because both Lucas and I just stunk with our picks. 2 and 3 for the both of us. But I will say a couple of things I do want to talk about real quick with the Survivor Series, because I only have about 6 minutes left. Jack Swagger on the pre-show. Wasn't he too injured to compete on Team Cena by the 2 Seth Rollins curb stomps, yet he can compete on the pre-show? Just that lack of continuity just infuriates me.
Maybe he had a little bit of a pick-me-up.
I'm not even going anywhere there with that. The Roman Reigns interview, why? Just keep him off TV, let him get better, as opposed to playing to his not strengths, which is talking.
He wanted it to rain and.
Yeah, I know. Cock his fist and make it rain, and it sounds forced. They're trying to make a pun off of his name, and it just doesn't work. And then the Divas Championship changing in similar fashion. They directly referenced Daniel Bryan and Sheamus from WrestleMania 28, the 18-second match that crippled the internet back then. And I don't know, was it by intent that the length of the time of match was almost double that of Bryan Sheamus? And was that WWE's way of saying it was twice the match that Daniel Bryan's and Sheamus's was? Or am I just being overly... am I going Jesse Ventura conspiracy theory here?
I think you're pulling a Jesse Ventura, Daddy-O.
Yeah, I just might be. I don't know. That's all this time from healing it up on Completely Damaged Radio on Mondays. Something like that. All right, Eric, thanks so much for calling. I'm coming up against it here, and I've only got a little bit of time, but appreciate the phone call. Thanks for chiming in here late on this Saturday afternoon, the post-Pennsbury football edition of Pro Wrestling Weekly. All right. I've talked enough Punk for one day. I had other clips, but probably the biggest thing was Punk talking about after being away for so long, Punk getting married on June 13th, getting contacted by Triple H 2 days prior, Triple H wanting to talk, and Punk saying, hey, I'm about to get married and go on my honeymoon. As soon as I get back, I'll be happy to chat. 2 days later, on his wedding day, he gets served with termination papers. So, I don't know. A little bit of ruthlessness from Vinnie Mac and Triple H. Not exactly surprising considering the ruthless things that Vince has done over the years. I don't know. What can you say? What can you do, as Denny O usually says. All right, birthdays. On this day in 1942, longtime WWE and WCW interviewer and announcer Eugene Arthur Okerlund was born. The 2006 Hall of Famer known as Mean Gene turns 72 today. Also on this date in 1949, Wayne Keown was born. The wrestling manager and booker previously known as Dutch Mantell and currently in WWE as Zeb Coulter turns 65 today. Happy birthday, as opposed to we the people. Same year, 1949, longtime WWE color commentator Jerry the King Lawler was born. The 2007 Hall of Famer turns 65 today. And while we're on color commentators, 1966, former WWE champion John Charles Layfield was born. The current WWE color commentator known as John Bradshaw Layfield, or JBL for short, turns 48 today. And you can get a nice look on... I'll give a plug to Jay Hunter and OSW Review. They've got a nice screen cap of once the anonymous Raw general manager thing went down on Raw. You can see both of them face palming as Michael Cole's standing up, grinning like an idiot, getting ready to head over to the podium. With a couple of minutes left, let me tell you that pro wrestling action returns to the Monster Factory. Of course, 541 Mantua Avenue, Paulsboro, New Jersey, Saturday, December 13th. That's 2 weeks from tonight with a special 2 p.m. bell time. Matches so far announced for the card: Chad Kensington and Royale Money of the faction Paid in Full challenge QT Marshall and Billy Damiana. Also, new Supersonic champion Anthony Bennett defends his title against former champion Mikey Webb in a rematch from Turkey Slam. Nick Camarado squares off against Clutch Adams, who blames Camarado for losing the Monster Factory Tag Team Championship, thanks to the injury to Mike Spanos. And Turkey Slam winner Ryan Adrenaline Rush cashes in his title shot for winning the Turkey Slam Battle Royal and will challenge Luis the Punisher Martinez for the Monster Factory Heavyweight title. All this and more at the Monster Factory just 2 weeks away. More information available at monsterfactory.org. Also want to let you know details on, well, a couple of TNA bits and pieces. I know we haven't really talked much TNA, but why not now? TNA's final Spike TV episodes will start this Wednesday, December 3rd. The 3rd and the 10th will feature the Best of Impact Wrestling 2014, and the 17th and 24th will feature a countdown to the all-time best TNA moment, and that will close out TNA on Spike TV. And the first tapings are already set for Destination America. They'll be held on January 7th, 8th, and 9th at the Manhattan Center in New York City. Tickets go on sale this Friday, December 5. For those wondering in the Philadelphia area, because I was curious myself, Destination America is on Channel 113 on Xfinity by Comcast, Channel 168 or HD 668 on Verizon Fios, Channel 286 on DirecTV, and Channel 194 on the Dish Network. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for tuning into this late afternoon edition. Thanks to Nick Cataldi for letting me kind of sneak in to the country music area there and letting Pro Wrestling Weekly happen on this Saturday afternoon. More Nick Cataldi for the 5 o'clock hour, and then Joe LeCompte has the 60s through the 90s and beyond, taking you up to the midnight hour here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Serving you better than ever before. This is 1490 WBCB.